What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back to my unit review series for Fire Emblem Heroes, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Walhart, the Conqueror, and these are the topics I'm going to be discussing in this review. So let us begin.
I am inexorable!
For a free unit, Walhart does have pretty good stat line with very high attack and defense. This lets him excel as a physical unit and he can be quite useful in the in-game content and in arena assault, and his resistance is really bad, and that's the main problem in a metagame where dragons are running rampant. He takes a ton from even a blue dragon like Noe, so that's definitely a problem. His speed is low, but with Wolfberg and Hun Cavalry buff, it can be decent enough to avoid doubles, and with Wolfberg he reaches 31 speed, which is still pretty low actually. He comes with a signature weapon, Wolfberg, which gives him +3 defense, allowing him to reach 39 defense unboosted, and its effect functions the same as legendary Ephraim's Flame Segment. He basically wants to be outnumbered by the foes or just fight 2 spaces away from his allies. This does affect team building quite a bit because you will not be able to use spur or drive buffs as it will conflict with his playstyle, and having teammates with good mobility also helps a lot because they can just buzz off and leave him alone for his weapon effect to activate. Being used legendary Ephraim a lot, I really like this effect. It's definitely fun and reflects on him as a character, and it's a nice thing on a cavalry unit. If this effect is active, then he gets +4 to all of his stats, and that makes it easier for him to take on multiple enemies with his increased offense and defense. In Awakening, Wolfberg had 1 to 2 range, but I'm glad he does not have innate distant counter because his res is extremely low, and I prefer this Wolfberg effect over just a simple distant counter effect, so I really like this. His slotty skill is Granny Shield, and while making free-to-play guides, I have found this to be quite useful in a lot of the Grand Hero Battle Elite quest, but outside of that, it's a pretty dead skill. Units don't usually run horse-sling skills that often, and the most common ones are Shida and Claire with their respective legendary weapons, and trying to focus on having neutral damage against those select foes versus overall increasing his stats with an A skill is not really the best idea. But that said, I do get why they have put this on him. It's a reference to his exclusive skill from Awakening, Conquest, which nullified his armor and beast weakness, so Granny Shield references that, but I would have preferred if they gave him some kind of exclusive skill, but that's just me. It's like they have stopped putting any kind of exclusive skills on free-to-play units, and only legendary heroes have that. His slot B skill is very nice with his high attack, and chill defense and Wolfberg boost essentially gives him 64 attack against the unit who got debuffed by chill defense, and that's counting without an A skill or a sacred seal. It's usually going to be activating against armors like Hector's and Effie in arena, and he can definitely take those on pretty easily because of his physical bulk. His special is Luna, which is decent, but Bonfire overall is a superior special for him, and Glimmer also works because of his high attack. So Glimmer is the choice if you want to activate that in a single round if he's not gonna get doubled, and Bonfire of course gives you a lot of damage with more defensive sets where you're stacking up defense on him. He has the same BST as legendary Ephraim and Ares, and he also has a legendary weapon, but lack of merges will hurt his arena score in the long run. Walhart can be compared to Frederick. They have a pretty similar stat line, but at base, Walhart is better than Frederick with higher attack and legendary weapon, which does increase his defense by 3 and has another effect which does strengthen his offenses and defenses. However, because of being a Grand Hero Battle unit and a limited unit with no access to IVs, the age-old argument can be made that for long-term use, Frederick has got access to merges and IVs, and therefore he's better than Walhart, which is actually true. But with low or no merges, Walhart will be much better for a lot of the players who are not really thinking of investing that heavily into an Axe Cavalier. But of course, if you want to, then Frederick is a really great choice over him. And overall, I like Walhart. He seems like a fun unit to use as an Axe Cavalier, which is not really a saturated class at this point. And he's not really broken, but he's solid at what he does, which is being a melee tank and a bruiser. His low resistance is a major problem for him because of dragons, and his playstyle doesn't really go well with drive skills or in general buffing playstyle because he has to separate from his allies, so a lot of buffing and supporting with teammates don't really go well with him because if he fights alone, then the next turn he's gonna be not having any sort of buffs at the start of the turn. And also being a horse unit, he does not have access to breath skills or even wrath. It's also interesting to note how Walhart's weapon effect is a direct contrast to that of Chrom's Falchion Refine. Chrom gains strength by being next to his comrades arm in arm, and Walhart gains strength by fighting alone, fighting for his own convictions and beliefs. Also, as of making this video, the only two units who can have access to chill defense are Chrom and Walhart, which is definitely fascinating. Speaking of chill defense, you do get 3 copies of Walhart as of right now. You could invest into one of them and fodder up 2 of them for chill defense. It's a premium skill, so it's definitely worth it in my opinion, but unfortunately you will have to upgrade him to 5-star for getting the version 3 of the skill, and here are some good recipients of chill defense if you decide to fodder him off. Recently we had a banner with Kinshi Knight Hinoka, and once again she's back on the legendary banner, so she could really use the -7 debuff from chill defense to one-shot some armor units. Chill defense is good with weapons that do effective damage like hers, and she's targeting armor units who are known to have highest defense in the game. Similarly, Sheeta has got an effective weapon and she doesn't really have the best attack, so she can use chill defense nicely while providing more debuff and ploy utility to her teammates. Alm has got an effective weapon and also a brave weapon, so chill defense helps us nuking potential, but of course you miss out on renewal, which is something a lot of people like to run, and chill defense also scales really well with Glimmer. You can also free up slot B of an ally by running chill defense on a support unit like Marth instead, and with his Falchion drive attack and something like attack tactic, he can provide +11 attack to his allies, which is actually really nice with chill defense debuff. Hard-hitting brave weapon users like Shershi can utilize it very nicely, but you do miss out on hit and run, and that's why if you run chill defense on a support unit like Marth for example, you could run hit and run on Shershi while enjoying the chill defense debuff. Brave bow archers who cannot really quad attack also make for a good recipient of the skill, and you can even run this on some speedy fire sweep bow users. They can increase their damage output using that, and their slot B is relatively free, so it's not like they are going to be missing out on something like hit and run, so it can definitely be run on fire sweep bow users. So those were just few examples for chill defense. It's actually a pretty versatile skill with no inheritance restriction. It can be pretty useful for getting arena defense wins as well because it's a global debuff and you cannot really avoid that. So I do think it's worth spending 20,000 feathers for it and foddering off one of your Walharts.
You shall fall to the wayside!
Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of good enemy phase budget slot A skills, so Fortress Defense is to be used here from a 4-star set, and it puts him at 48 defense with Wolfberg. He does have good attack, and -3 attack is not really the worst thing in the world with Fortress Defense, seeing as how he can get attack boost from Wolfberg as well. And attack smoke is pretty much his best slot C option. You're going to be seeing that a lot on a lot of these builds. It goes perfectly with his playstyle. This is a nice budget build for him, helping him being really stocky with low investment. And another budget build for him utilizes Brazen Attack Defense from a 4-star Ares and Vantage. He has a very high attack with this build, which makes Vantage really good on him. And the only downside is that Brazen skills don't really have good synergy with Quick Riposte, so it makes this build less consistent without Quick Riposte in the enemy phase, but nonetheless it still capitalizes on his strengths. The third build is just an alternative version of the second build, with simply utilizing Fury over Brazen skill. Fury gives buffs to all of his stats, and so does his weapon Wolfberg. This allows him to reach decent speed to avoid some doubles, while still capitalizing on his attack and defense. The fourth build is more of a player phase oriented set with Deathblow. Its aim is to one-shot units in the player phase, and then when you get attacked in the enemy phase, you retaliate back with Glimmer thanks to slow cooldown, and his default chill defense also helps him a lot with this build. But this build doesn't really have much of an enemy phase because of lack of Quick Riposte. If you want, you could actually make this build premium by having Odd Attack Wave on his slot C over Attack Smoke, and that actually goes pretty well with his lone playstyle. He can just buff himself up. And Ishtar is actually on a Legendary Hero banner right now, so it can definitely be done if you like Walhart a lot. So those were his budget builds. Now let's move on to more expensive builds for him. Starting with double close defense, it makes him into a melee range juggernaut with massive 55 defense and pretty good 32 resistance, which is definitely helpful against dragons. With something like Fortify Cavalry or defense or res tactic buff, you could easily take this even further. His bonfire damage is also going to be extremely high. The next build is a bit gimmicky one with newly released attack defense link on Sumiya, and this build has a lot of one-round KO potential because of boosting his attack really high. Smite works really well with his playstyle and throwing out allies out of his range so that he can trigger his Wolfberg condition. When he uses Smite, he will give himself and the ally +6 attack and +6 defense. That stacks up with sturdy stance, making him a force to be reckoned with in the enemy phase. Glimmer is really good for taking out slow enemies that will not be able to double him, and lance armor units who do not have bold fighter. Bonfire can also be run, but Glimmer really helps him with one-round KOing potential. which is the goal of this build. This is a very expensive build and Smite might look really good on paper, but it won't always be fully useful because of factors such as terrain and other units body blocking the smited unit. So that's why it's a bit gimmicky build, but definitely a fun one if you can sacrifice a lot of 5-star units. And with his high attack, it would be a disservice to him to not mention Heavy Blade. Heavy Blade can be used with Ether to keep him healthy so that he stays in the quick riposte range. It does help him with his playstyle. Attack Smoke, as I said in the beginning, is going to be seen on a lot of these builds, and it helps him a lot for this build for proccing Heavy Blade with the -7 attack debuff. Once again, Legendary Ephraim will need to be sacrificed for this, and his final build is a build that he can use to get max points in Arena. He can only get +2 merge as of right now, and for this build he has got Distant Counter. This allows him to crush archers and dagger units because of his high defense, and distant defense is very much needed so that he can avoid one-shots from mages. However, if you want to run Heavy Blade for faster ether procs, you could definitely do that. And I also highly recommend Walhart Enthusiast to summoner support him because the additional bulk will help him a lot. The main problem with this build is that Walhart doesn't really have a very high res, and he's slow as well, so a lot of fast mages can just destroy him and even one-shot him. He also dies to a plus in merge quick and pulse Reinhardt, but he can survive if given some res support or summoner support, or if you're lucky enough to not face Reinhardts who do not have quick and pulse. But yeah, that was his final build.
This is nature.
Water Blessing is a nice option seeing as how Fiorm covers his magical weakness and puts him at 34 speed with her water effect, which is decent enough to avoid doubles. Because of Fiorm's high res, she can utilize stuff like attack ploy and defense ploy to support Walhart from a distance without getting in his way. Chill defense is also helpful for Fiorm because she has got low attack. Ryoma's +4 defense and +3 HP is pretty massive for his physical durability, and Walhart can take on hard-hitting physical blue units for him, while Ryoma can take on some of the fast mages like Nino, who could definitely trouble Walhart because of his low resistance. Fire Blessing is another choice, and it also gives you bonus points for matching with his armor. Both Ephraim and Walhart have the same playstyle, they both have good mobility and they can give each other the horse buffs and then go on their way in different sides of the map and take on foes. Once again, the defense is really useful for Walhart, and Hector can give him attack, but more importantly, Ostia Pulse support, using which he can have 2-turn bonfire, and it's really nice with Heavy Blade Ether set which Walhart can run. The problem with Fire Blessing is that both of these units share similar weakness to Walhart. Both Ephraim and Walhart have got really low resistance and they will just get crushed by dragons, while Hector and Walhart have got the same color, and it only takes an Alphonse with his new Refine to crush both of these titans. And Hector is also an armor unit with 1 movement, so unless you're running Smite on Walhart or Armored Boots on Hector, it can conflict with Walhart's playstyle. So it does have its pros, but it also has cons, which you should not ignore.
I need no aid.
As I said before, the units who can benefit from chill defense don't really need to run that skill directly on their skill set and instead just make use of Walhart. He really needs magic checks because of his low res, so units like Fiorm and Felicia definitely help a lot. With this playstyle, you want to use units who have got good mobility so that they can distance themselves for the Wolfberg activation, and such blue units could definitely help get rid of the reds for him. Dragons being very common in Arena and Walhart being weak to them definitely makes units like Roy, Lucina and Adeltiki good teammates, and a unit with his kind of stat line has really obvious counters in red units, dragons and of course mages. Razzle Dazzle healers are also problematic, and another thing which is annoying to him is gravity effect. Even if Walhart does not take a direct hit from a healer, and if he's affected by gravity, it's not good for his playstyle and he will not be able to run away from his allies to activate his Wolfberg, so definitely watch out for the gravity effect.
Are you worthy?
Now let's take a look at some reasons why you may or may not want to upgrade him. Walhart does his job with the stat line, and Axe Cavaliers are not really all that saturated class, so if you haven't really got a good Axe Cavalier other than Grumart who was given away for free, he can be a nice unit to upgrade. Wolfberg and his playstyle gives you a pretty unique experience, so it can be nice to try out if you haven't really got Ephraim, and if you already have invested heavily into someone like Frederick, then there is really not much of a reason for you to upgrade him unless you really like him. Other Grandeur battle units like Arvis, who provide consistent utility, can also be higher on priority, and with the new arena changes announced, bonus units will be playing a big part in that. Asuka Trio will also be getting refinements, so upgrading Asuka Trio for bonus points in arena is definitely a greater priority for the feather use. And finally, if you really dislike the activation condition of his Volt perk and you don't really enjoy that playstyle, then you can save the feathers. And if you're going to be running something like Sling Axe or Sling Hammer on him, then I feel like Frederick is a better choice for that. So that is going to be it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like and share this video with your friends who want to build Walhart. And if you haven't already, then make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem Heroes content. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.